Speculation is growing around the future of Kash Patel as FBI director, with multiple reports suggesting that he could be the next high-profile exit from the Trump administration. According to a report by Politico, citing a senior White House official, Patel's position may be increasingly untenable. It's only a matter of time, the official said, pointing to a steady stream of negative headlines and mounting distractions for the administration. The report surfaced amid a broader churn in Trump's team following the recent dismissal of former Attorney General Pam Bondi. However, despite the speculation, the White House has publicly backed Patel. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the president still has confidence in him and described Patel as a critical player in the administration's law and order agenda. Well, at the center of the controversy is a detailed report by The Atlantic which cited around 24 current and former officials. The report alleged that colleagues were concerned about Patel's drinking habits and unexplained absences. Some claimed he was at times unreachable.
Hey you, Adam speaking. Let's slow down for a minute. Kash Patel, Trump's ultimate loyalist and hand-picked FBI director, is watching his world unravel as legal and political consequences catch up to him. His rise was fueled by defending Trump, but now he's discovering that loyalty alone won't shield him from accountability. He is getting dragged before Congress for brutal hearings where senators and representatives from both parties are hammering him with questions he cannot answer. He made a massive public mistake, claiming a suspect in the Charlie Kirk assassination was in custody, when the real shooter was still at large, a blunder that destroyed his credibility and made him look either incompetent or dishonest. He is facing lawsuits from fired FBI executives who say he is running a political purge, systematically removing anyone who isn't loyal to Trump. Congress is demanding the Jeffrey Epstein files, and Patel's stonewalling has pushed lawmakers to the breaking point. And now, members of Congress are openly talking about contempt charges, criminal referrals, possible perjury, even arrest. They are threatening to use powers that have not been deployed in decades, powers that could actually put an FBI director in handcuffs.
And staying in the United States, 3 former FBI officials have filed a federal lawsuit against FBI Director Kash Patel and Attorney General Pam Bondi, alleging that their firings were politically motivated to appease President Donald Trump. The lawsuit filed in Washington, D.C. claims Patel carried out the dismissals under pressure from the White House and the Justice Department, targeting agents involved in investigations related to President Donald Trump. The suit was brought by Brian Driscoll, who briefly served as acting FBI Director, Steve Jensen, former Assistant Director in charge of the Washington Field Office, and Spencer Evans, former Special Agent in charge of the Las Vegas Field Office. Now, according to the complaint, Patel told Driscoll that he had no choice but to fire certain agents because his ability to keep his own job depended on the removal of the agents who worked on cases involving the president.
This is Kash Patel's reality right now. He thought he could do whatever Trump wanted without accountability. He thought his patron's protection would shield him from any consequence. But he is learning a hard lesson about how power actually works in this country. Judges and Congress have power too, and they are threatening to use it in ways that could destroy his career, his reputation, and his freedom. Patel is cornered, facing threats from multiple directions, and starting to understand that loyalty to Trump might not be enough to save him. When asked about the unfolding crisis, Patel tried to dodge, deflect, and pretend he did not know what was happening. He claimed he had not seen the details, that he was too busy to follow the news, that he could not comment on things he had not personally reviewed. But the evasion was transparent and unconvincing. The questions kept coming, and Patel kept running. He said he had not heard about various incidents, that he was not going to comment until he found out the details, that he was not trying to dodge questions, but simply did not have the information. But everyone watching could see through the deflection. This was not a man who was simply uninformed. This was a man who was desperately trying to avoid accountability. The Charlie Kirk disaster is where Patel's credibility first took a fatal hit.
FBI Director Kash Patel is testifying on Capitol Hill today. He is facing tough questions from Senate Judiciary Committee on his oversight of the agency. Topics of note include the handling of the Epstein case, recent firings at the FBI, and just minutes ago, the investigation into Charlie Kirk's murder.
How's the FBI working to find other potential accomplices, folks who may have known about the shooter's plans, folks who may have encouraged him? Any update on any of that?
So in terms of what we do for an interrogation perspective, we go and reach out to the family and community immediately. And we've conducted those investigations and interrogations with local law enforcement, and we're continuing to do that because those closest to the suspect are going to hopefully know the most about the suspect and his beliefs and his ideology. On top of that, unfortunately, it has been leaked that there was a Discord chat, and for those unfamiliar with it, it's a gaming chat room online that the suspect participated in. So what we're doing, we've already done, is serve legal process, not just on Discord.
Charlie Kirk, a prominent conservative activist and Trump ally, was assassinated in a politically explosive case that captured national attention. The pressure on Patel as FBI director to solve the case quickly was enormous, especially because Kirk was such a significant figure in Trump's political movement. So Patel went on social media and claimed the FBI had a suspect in custody. He made a public statement that created the impression the case was solved. Media outlets picked it up, people celebrated, and then the truth emerged. The real shooter was still at large, and Patel's claim was completely false. His false statement created chaos. It gave people false information. It undermined the actual investigation. And it made Patel look either incompetent or dishonest. Maybe both. Congress noticed because when you are FBI director and you make false public statements about a major investigation, that is not a minor mistake. That raises fundamental questions about your judgment, your credibility, your fitness for the job.
And FBI Director Kash Patel is about to face some tough questions when he testifies this week on Capitol Hill after some mistakes in his handling of Charlie Kirk's assassination investigation. Conservative activist Chris Rufo posted this. It's time for Republicans to assess whether Patel is the right man to run the FBI, adding that he performed terribly in the last few days. So Patel prematurely announced the suspect was in custody. He also appeared to take credit for the FBI's release of images that ultimately led to the suspect's arrest. Here's how Utah Governor Spencer Cox sees it.
This was a co-lead operation. So the FBI was co-lead with the state. We worked very closely together. I think Director Patel would tell you it was flawless. It was everybody just trying to decide, is this a good idea? The reasons to release it, I think, are pretty obvious, right? It makes it easier for lots of people to see it and maybe find someone.
When Patel was called before Congress to testify about the Kirk case, he got absolutely hammered. Lawmakers wanted to know why he made that false statement, whether he was lying or just incompetent, whether he was politicizing the FBI to serve Trump rather than pursuing real justice. Patel's answers were not good. He tried to spin, he tried to deflect, but he could not explain away the false statement, and that damaged him permanently. The political purge allegations are even more serious and represent a fundamental threat to Patel's position and freedom. A New Yorker profile and lawsuits from fired FBI executives have accused Patel of running a purge inside the bureau. They say he is firing people based on their political views or their work on past Trump investigations. They say he is demanding loyalty to Trump rather than to the law. They say he is turning the FBI into a political weapon, an extension of Trump's political operation rather than an independent law enforcement agency. And there is evidence to support these claims. Multiple senior FBI officials have been fired or forced out since Patel took over, and many of them worked on cases that Trump did not like. The Russia investigation, January 6th, the Mar-a-Lago documents, the election interference probes. The pattern is clear. Patel is removing people who investigated Trump and replacing them with Trump loyalists. And that is not how the FBI is supposed to work. The Bureau is supposed to be independent, supposed to investigate crimes based on evidence, not politics. But Patel is turning it into something else entirely, something that threatens the very foundation of American law enforcement. Fired officials are fighting back, they are filing lawsuits, they are going public with their accusations, and they are providing evidence that Patel tied their jobs to whether they would fire agents who worked on Trump cases. That is retaliation. That is abuse of power. And it could be criminal. The Epstein files represent the most immediate threat to Patel because this is where Congress is running out of patience. Lawmakers have been demanding the full Jeffrey Epstein files for months. They want to know who Epstein was connected to, who knew about his crimes, who might have participated. There is enormous public interest in these files because Epstein had connections to powerful people across the political spectrum, and people want to know the truth. But Patel is stonewalling. He is refusing to release the files. He is claiming they need to stay redacted for various reasons: privacy concerns, ongoing investigations, national security. And Congress is furious because they suspect Patel is covering up for powerful people. Maybe people connected to Trump, maybe Trump himself. Congressional hearings on the Epstein files have been brutal. Members from both parties are hammering Patel. They are demanding answers, and they are warning that continued obstruction could lead to contempt votes and criminal referrals. And here is where it gets serious. Contempt is real. If Congress votes to hold Patel in contempt, there are consequences. Criminal contempt can lead to prosecution, perjury charges if he lied under oath, and theoretically, arrest. Now, arresting an FBI director would be unprecedented. It would trigger a massive crisis, but Congress has that power, and they are openly discussing whether to use it. Patel is walking a very dangerous line. He is betting that Trump's protection is enough, that Congress will not actually follow through on their threats. But what if he is wrong? What if Congress decides to make an example of him? Then Patel could be facing criminal charges, possible conviction, maybe even prison time. And suddenly being Trump's guy does not seem so great anymore, because Trump cannot protect you from Congress's contempt power. He cannot stop criminal prosecutions if Congress refers you. He cannot make lawsuits from fired FBI officials go away. Patel is cornered, and he is about to find out whether loyalty to Trump was worth it. Let us dig into the specifics of how Kash Patel got himself into this mess. Because this is not just one mistake. This is a pattern of behavior that has created legal and political jeopardy from multiple directions. Understanding Patel's background is essential to understanding why he is in this position. Patel started as a congressional staffer working for Devin Nunes. He became known as a Trump loyalist who attacked the Russia investigation, called it a hoax, pushed conspiracy theories. Trump noticed and brought Patel into his administration, made him a senior advisor, and eventually appointed him as FBI director. Patel's entire career is built on loyalty to Trump. He is not a traditional law enforcement professional. He is a political operative who got put in charge of the nation's premier law enforcement agency. That has created problems because the FBI is supposed to be independent, supposed to investigate crimes without political interference. But Patel sees his job differently. He sees himself as Trump's enforcer inside the bureau, and that has led to all the controversies he is now facing. The Charlie Kirk assassination case first damaged Patel's credibility publicly. Kirk was a prominent conservative activist, founder of Turning Point USA, a major Trump supporter. He was assassinated, shot, and killed. It was a huge story, and the pressure to solve the case was enormous, especially because Kirk was a Trump ally. Patel was personally involved in the investigation, and then he made a massive mistake. He went on social media and claimed the FBI had a suspect in custody. He posted about it, media outlets picked it up, everyone thought the case was solved, except it was not. The real shooter was still at large, and Patel's claim was false. When that became clear, it created chaos. People were confused. The investigation looked incompetent, and Patel looked either dishonest or incompetent. He later tried to walk it back, said there was a miscommunication, said he was referring to a different suspect who was in custody on unrelated charges. But that explanation did not make sense because his original post clearly implied the FBI had caught Kirk's killer. Patel's credibility took a massive hit, and when he was called before Congress to explain, he got destroyed. Lawmakers wanted to know why he made that false statement. Was he lying to score political points? Was he incompetent and did not know what was actually happening in the investigation? Was he pressured by Trump to claim progress that did not exist? Patel could not give good answers. He tried to spin. He blamed subordinates. He claimed he was misunderstood, but nobody bought it. Congress concluded that Patel either lied or was so incompetent he did not know what his own bureau was doing. Either way, it raised serious questions about his fitness to be FBI director. The political purge allegations represent where Patel is facing the most serious legal jeopardy. Multiple sources, including a detailed New Yorker profile and lawsuits from fired officials, accuse Patel of systematically purging the FBI of anyone who is not loyal to Trump. The pattern is clear. Since Patel took over as FBI director, numerous senior officials have been fired or forced out. Many of them worked on investigations that Trump did not like. The Russia investigation, January 6th, the classified documents case, the election interference probes. These were career FBI agents and officials who were just doing their jobs. But because their jobs involved investigating Trump, they are now gone. According to the lawsuits, Patel made it clear that their firing was political. He allegedly told people their jobs depended on whether they would fire agents who worked on Trump cases. That is retaliation. That is, using your position to punish people for doing legitimate law enforcement work. And that is illegal. Federal employment law protects whistleblowers and people who participate in legitimate investigations. You cannot fire them for doing their jobs. But that is exactly what Patel allegedly did. The fired officials are fighting back. They are suing. They are demanding reinstatement. They are seeking damages. And they are providing evidence to support their claims. Documents, emails, testimony from witnesses, all of it painting a picture of Patel running a political purge to please Trump. If the lawsuits succeed, Patel could be found liable. He could face financial penalties. He could be removed from office. But it is even worse than that. If Patel's actions were willful and malicious, they could potentially be criminal. Abuse of power, obstruction of justice, violating federal employment protections. These are serious allegations, and if prosecutors decide to pursue them, Patel could face criminal charges. The Epstein files represent where Patel is facing the most immediate threat of contempt. Congress has been demanding the full Jeffrey Epstein files for months. They want to see who Epstein was connected to, who knew about his crimes, who might have been complicit. There is enormous public interest in this, because Epstein had connections to powerful people across the political spectrum. But the files have been sealed and protected for years. Now that Patel is FBI director, Congress is demanding he release them. Patel is refusing. He is claiming the files need to stay redacted for various reasons: privacy concerns, ongoing investigations, national security. But Congress suspects those are excuses. They suspect Patel is covering up for powerful people who are implicated in the files. Maybe people connected to Trump, maybe Trump himself. They are not buying Patel's explanations. Congressional hearings on the Epstein files have been brutal. Members from both parties are demanding full disclosure, and they are warning Patel that continued obstruction will have consequences, specifically contempt charges. Here is how that would work. If Congress votes to hold Patel in contempt, they can refer him for criminal prosecution. The Justice Department would then have to decide whether to actually prosecute. But here is the twist. Patel is FBI director and the FBI reports to DOJ. So would DOJ really prosecute its own FBI director? That is unclear. But Congress has another option: inherent contempt. That is Congress's power to enforce its own subpoenas without going through the courts. If they invoke inherent contempt, they can direct the sergeant-at-arms to literally arrest Patel and bring him before Congress and detain him until he complies. It is an extreme power, and Congress has not used it successfully since the 1,930 seconds. But they are talking about it now. Members are openly discussing whether to invoke inherent contempt against Patel. That is a serious threat. Because if Congress actually follows through, Patel could be arrested, brought before Congress, and held until he releases the files. That would be unprecedented for an FBI director. But Congress has that power, and they are considering using it. The perjury risk is another dimension of Patel's legal jeopardy. He has testified before Congress multiple times under oath. If any of his testimony was false, that is perjury, a federal crime. There are reasons to believe some of his testimony might have been false. His explanations about the Charlie Kirk case do not match the facts. His claims about why he fired FBI officials conflict with what the lawsuits allege. His statements about the Epstein files might not match what is actually in those files. If Congress or prosecutors decide to investigate whether Patel lied under oath, he could be in serious trouble. Perjury is hard to prove. You have to show someone knowingly made a false statement about a material fact. But if the evidence is there, Patel could face charges. Perjury convictions carry prison time. Patel is facing legal jeopardy from multiple angles: lawsuits over the political purge, possible contempt charges over the Epstein files, potential perjury over his congressional testimony. All of it stems from his loyalty to Trump and his willingness to use the FBI as a political weapon. Legal YouTube channels and commentary videos have been producing content about Patel that dramatizes courtroom scenarios. Videos with titles like "Kash Patel Frozen as Judge Threatens Arrest" or "Judge Destroys Kash Patel in Court." These videos take the real legal threats Patel is facing, real contempt, perjury, lawsuits, and dramatize them into courtroom confrontations. They imagine scenarios where a judge warns Patel that if he does not comply with the subpoena by a deadline, he will face criminal contempt and arrest. They describe Patel going pale or frozen as he realizes the threat is real. These videos are dramatizations. They are not reporting on actual courtroom events, but they are based on real legal threats because Patel really is facing possible contempt. He really could be arrested if Congress invokes inherent contempt. Judges really could hold him in contempt if he defies court orders. The dramatizations are exaggerated versions of real scenarios, and they are getting millions of views because people are fascinated by the idea of a powerful Trump ally facing legal consequences. The videos serve a purpose. They are entertaining. They are educational in explaining how contempt works. And they are reflecting real public interest in whether Patel will face accountability. Patel has choices to make. He can cooperate with Congress, release the Epstein files, stop stonewalling, and maybe avoid contempt charges. But that would mean defying Trump because Trump probably does not want those files released. If Patel cooperates with Congress, he risks losing Trump's support. Or Patel can keep stonewalling, keep betting that Congress will not actually follow through on their contempt threats, and hope Trump's protection is enough. But that is a risky bet. Because if Congress does invoke contempt, Patel could face arrest, criminal charges, lawsuits. Trump might not be able to protect him from all of that. Patel is cornered, and he is about to find out whether loyalty to Trump was worth the risk. Let us bring this all together and talk about what it really means that Kash Patel is facing threats of arrest, contempt, and possible criminal charges. Because this is not just about one man. This is about whether Trump's inner circle can escape accountability for weaponizing government institutions. First, let us be clear about Patel's situation. He is FBI director, one of the most powerful law enforcement positions in the country. He is facing legal threats from multiple directions. Congress is threatening contempt over the Epstein files. Fired FBI officials are suing over political purges. There is potential perjury exposure from his congressional testimony. That is an extraordinary level of legal jeopardy for a sitting FBI director. And it all stems from Patel's decision to run the Bureau as Trump's political enforcer rather than as an independent law enforcement agency. The contempt threats are real. Congress has the power to hold Patel in contempt if he keeps stonewalling on the Epstein files. Criminal contempt can lead to prosecution. Inherent contempt can lead to arrest and detention. Actually arresting an FBI director would be unprecedented. It would trigger a massive constitutional crisis. Trump would resist. He would argue Congress is overstepping. The whole thing would become a battle between branches of government. But Congress has that power, and they are openly discussing whether to use it. The threat is real, and Patel needs to take it seriously, because if Congress decides to make an example of him, he could end up in custody, brought before Congress, and detained until he complies. The political purge lawsuits are equally serious. Fired FBI officials are accusing Patel of retaliating against them for doing their jobs, firing them because they worked on Trump investigations, running a loyalty purge to please Trump. If the lawsuits succeed, Patel could be found liable. He could face damages. He could be removed from office. Beyond the civil liability, there is potential criminal exposure. If Patel knowingly violated federal employment protections, if he obstructed justice by firing people to protect Trump, if he abused his power, those could be federal crimes. Prosecutors could pursue charges. That is unlikely while Patel is FBI director, because DOJ is not going to prosecute its own FBI director. But after Patel leaves office, he could be vulnerable. Future prosecutors could look at what he did and decide to bring charges. Patel's legal jeopardy does not end when the lawsuits resolve. It could follow him for years. The perjury risk is also significant. Patel has testified under oath multiple times. If any of his testimony was false, that is a federal crime. His statements about the Charlie Kirk case, his explanations for firing FBI officials, his claims about the Epstein files, all of that is on the record. If prosecutors decide to investigate whether he lied, they could build a perjury case. Perjury is hard to prove, but if the evidence is strong, Patel could face charges. Perjury convictions carry prison time. This is not just about political embarrassment. This is about potential criminal consequences. Why this matters beyond just Patel is because Patel is a symbol of Trump's approach to government. He is a loyalist who got put in charge of a powerful agency. He used that agency to serve Trump's political interests rather than to enforce the law fairly. Now he is facing consequences. Lawsuits, contempt threats, possible criminal charges. That sends a message. The message is that you cannot weaponize government institutions without risk. That loyalty to Trump does not protect you from accountability. That institutions will push back if you go too far. Patel's defenders will say he is being targeted because he is cleaning house at the FBI. They will say the people he fired were corrupt. They will say he is just enforcing the law against Trump's enemies. They will frame the contempt threats and lawsuits as political persecution. The FBI is supposed to be independent, not a political weapon, not a cover-up machine, and not a loyalty test. Patel's entire career was built on defending Trump, but now that he's facing legal jeopardy, he's discovering that Trump's protection has limits, and they may not be enough to save him. Patel has to make decisions. He can cooperate with Congress, release the Epstein files, stop stonewalling, and maybe avoid contempt charges. But that means defying Trump, because Trump probably does not want those files public. Or Patel can keep fighting, keep stonewalling, keep betting that Congress will not follow through on their threats, and hope Trump's backing is enough. But that is risky, because if Congress does invoke contempt, Patel could be arrested. Then Trump's backing does not matter. Patel would be in custody, subject to Congress's authority, and forced to comply or stay detained. Patel is cornered. He is facing threats from multiple directions, and he is running out of options. If Kash Patel faces consequences for politicizing the FBI, it proves Trump's allies are not untouchable and that institutions can still check abuse. If not, it signals accountability is dead. The pressure is building, and the outcome will define whether the rule of law still holds.